What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel. This time we are doing another Building Better Balance setup split on the Clocktower, but we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. Rather than specifically looking at what's going in the bag, we're going to be looking at how the Vortox's misinformation is going to be interacting with each of our different information townsfolk. This is a Sex and Violet script, except that I've specifically picked only information townsfolk. That doesn't necessarily mean that this will be balanced, but we're going to be going around and hypothetically looking at what kind of specifically false information that we should be giving in a Vortox world. What is going to be too punishing, what is going to be too gracious. Because with the Vortox, you can only just not show the correct thing, which means it's like, okay, let's say we have a chef. The chef would receive a 0 if the Vortox was not in play. And because the Vortox is in play, we can't show a 0. We can show a -1, we can show a 2, we can show a 15, we can show a 45. The goal is to find out what actual answers are, good options. What things should we actually be trying to show these characters for what kind of things. Some of them are binaries, like the flower girls that are going to be a binary where you're just showing the opposite, and that's really easy. The mathematician is going to be a little bit more complicated. So let's kick it off. I have just put the Evil Twin and the Serenovus in here. For Sex of Violence, the minions don't really, muck around too much with what the Vortox is going to be doing, except if maybe the Pit Hag is changing what the demon is from Nadashi to Vortox, and then that's going to change whether something is poisoned or specifically false. I think it's fine for us just to ignore that for the purposes of this video. We're just going to be talking about the Vortox as if it has been unchanged and how it is going to interact with just different things. Let's start with some easy ones. The Clockmaker. Now, the Clockmaker is supposed to receive a 1 step, 2 steps. So let's just make a note here. Clockmaker should be receiving a 2. Now we can give every other number, and we have 10 players. And because we have 10 players, the greatest number, I think, is 4, is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is equidistant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. The greatest possible number is 5. Any number greater than that is obviously off the table. A 4 would just be indicating the Evil Twin and the Serenovus potentially. But also could be indicating the Evil Twin and the Vortox. So if the demon was the Evil Twin here and the minions were here, that would be a correct 4. So actually a 4 is helpful because it can help you find a pair of evil players, even though it's technically false information. And therefore I think that that is a good option. The other thing is that the way that the Clockmaker interacts with the Evil Twin is that you should always be doing Clockmaker maths from the Evil Twin first, because you can set up pairs, right? So let's say the Savant is the Good Twin. Then we go, okay, and let's forget the Vortox, right? In this scenario, we have a Clockmaker 2. We go, okay, so from the Good Twin is 2 steps to the Evil Twin and vice versa. And it is unlikely that they are a demon minion pair. Let's just pretend that they're not bluffing, they're not a demon minion pair, which means that from the Good Twin is the Serenovus and the Mathematician is from the Evil Twin. And so if people are going to be counting from the Evil Twin because it's the most public obvious minion trying to find the demon, then the Clockmaker information is going to be setting up that kind of a witch hunt. It might mean that the Mathematician gets killed, and you have to be kind of thinking of what characters you're putting in the line of fire based on that. If this was something like the Witch or the Pit Hag, you don't have to worry as much, but the Evil Twin and the Clockmaker together, that is kind of a concern. And showing a 2 when they are that many steps away from each other cuts the number of possible demon candidates in half. If we show a Clockmaker 1, that means the Dreamer, the Artist, or the Flower Girl are in the firing line. Often, if there's a player that overlaps with the number, that player will be in the firing line. Here, the Artist getting executed is not the worst thing. Because they go, oh, I'm on the block, I'll ask my question. That's fine. But if we give a 4, like I think, we go, okay, what if it's 4 steps from the Savant, we go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the Demon. From the Evil Twin, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the Demon. Uh-oh. We have just used our false information given to the Clockmaker to specifically implicate the Demon as the most likely correct answer from our good twin and our evil twin. Now, if obviously to defeat that argument is easy, because the Vortox player goes, well, if there's any Vortox anywhere, this information obviously is just implicating me. It's not correct. If I was the Nodashi, you could not get this information. They would have to specifically be the Vigor Mortis or the Fangu. And to prove that I'm the Fangu, you should tell me where the outsider is and stuff like that. I think it's not a game over if you show the 4. It is more helpful for the good team in trying to solve. But the Clockmaker information in this scenario, unfortunately, hinges a lot on what the evil twin is doing. So for the sake of discovery, we're going to remove the witch. I think in this scenario, showing a 4 is fine, or showing a 3. 3 is just less helpful. 3 just tells you nothing. Showing a 4 does tell you something. But if they actually knew that this was 3 evil players, then they would think that the demon has to be where the witch is sitting, which I think is fine. And so let's change this to a finished. We've chosen. We're showing a 4. Next is let's do the Town Crier. So the Town Crier and the Flower Girl are both just going to be the opposite of whatever happened. I can go a Juggler. Let's pick something else. And a Seamstress. Okay. These had a little bit more play. Because with the Flower Girl, if the demon did not vote, then you show, yes, the demon voted. There isn't actually that much for us to discuss here. Let's do some hypothetical juggles. My favorite juggle is skip the player to my left, no dashy, no dashy, no dashy, no dashy, no dashy. This works really well in a 7-player game. Because is it 7-player? 8-player game? Yeah, this works really well in an 8-player game because you can't read your neighbors if they are a Nodashi, and in an 8-player game, it's more likely to have a Nodashi than in a 15-player game. And then if both of your neighbors are not the Nodashi, you have a chance of hitting a Nodashi in the rest of the circle. If your neighbor is a Nodashi, it doesn't matter. Your information is worthless. So I think that is a consider juggle. If they did that, if they just went hunting for the demon, do we show them a yes here? Because they've not found the demon, they would receive a 0. Do we show them a 1? We can't show them a 2 because they would never find, they would never reasonably find 2 Nodashi or more. They would never find 5 Nodashi. So in that scenario, you were just telling them that they are Vortoxed or poisoned, which I think removes the ability to solve the puzzle and is not a good choice. Your choices realistically are 0 or 1 in this scenario. I think showing a 1, look at the people that might get executed because of this. Is the witch not really a big deal? Is the seamstress not really a big loss because they probably could have activated their ability already? Same with the artist, but the savant and the dreamer are in the firing line, which is a bit but because there is literally no Nodashi present, we have to show a 1 because the vortex says you can't show 0, and it seems unrealistic to show a 2 or greater. So we go, yeah, you got a 1, there is no Nodashi here. Let's look at a slightly more complicated juggle. Let's just put down some corrects. We're going to go, the juggler talked to the mathematician, juggled the mathematician. The juggler talked to the artist, and I'm putting the corrects here, but that is incorrect. And they juggled both of the minions as whatever they're laughing at us. So they juggled the mathematician correct, they juggled the artist correct, and they juggled the 2 minions incorrect. Now, what we can do here is we can show a number greater than expected. Let's say they also juggle themselves as a juggler. That's also a pretty common thing to do, just to get to the 5. So let's say this was the juggles. The number that should be shown is a 3, which means that 2 people are really sus. We have 2 options. We can show a bigger number that is going to make the witch or the Serenovus here look like they are actually the character they claimed. I think showing a 4 already feels like a really big number. and they might go, wow, okay, that's really sex and violence. That many people were truthful to me. That might be a bit sus. Showing a 5, they're like, okay, surely I'm Vortoxed or poisoned. I think very rarely jugglers will see a 5 in like poisonous or Vortoxing scenario. Be damned. I think maybe in this setup specifically, where they did hit both minions, they didn't juggle the demon. I think I would be okay showing a 5. I don't think it's so detrimental to make the Serenovus and the Witch look okay, like look good, because if the demon's team is trying to avoid the demon getting executed, sometimes they need a patsy, and if the Witch and the Serenovus look too good, it's going to be hard to get them executed instead. Which I think is fine. I think that's an okay trade. I think showing a 5 is fine here. We can't show a 3 because of the Vortox. Should we show a 2? Now, a 2 is really interesting because the juggler juggled themselves. They know they should get at least a 1. We can't show them a 0 because they would just know that their information is wrong. So they should see at least a 1. If we show them a 2, then they go, okay, 3 of the people lied to me. And we know that 2 of them are minions, so we know at least those 2 lied to them. But the artist or the mathematician additionally lied to them, according to their information. If we show a 1, then go, oh man, look, everyone's just bluffing at me. I didn't actually get any real, bluffs. I don't believe any of you. This is horrible. And they get to the end of the game, and the artist is still on the artist claim. The mathematician is still on the mathematician claim. And they're like, well then, either it has to be Vortox, or you're all evil, or something. And so I think actually showing a higher number here is the better choice. The cool thing about the Vortox is that if you can create a scenario where people don't think a Vortox is in play, then amazing, right? The more the better. The Dreamer here is immediately going to know if there is a Vortox or not, and that's fine. If only the Dreamer is the person that thinks it's a Vortox, they might be convinced that they are Nodashi poisoned instead. Or one of the evil team claims like Philosopher Dreamer that has correct information, or something like that. And then the Dreamer is the only person that truly knows that there is a Vortox, and you fool everyone else is kind of the goal. But I think this is fine. So I want to do the Mathematician next, but we're going to have 2 different nights of info to look at. So maybe I saved the math for later, but basically first night we're going to have Clockmaker, we're going to have Seamstress, we're going to assume that the Seamstress activates on the very first night. We don't have Savant, we don't have Artist, we do have the Dreamer, we don't have the Juggler. So the Dreamer must get false information, the Clockmaker must get false information, the Seamstress must get false information. So they should be getting at least a 3. And usually the easiest thing to show a mathematician is a 0. For this setup, I actually think 0 and then 1s forever might actually be correct. So on the first night, we have the Seamstress, the Dreamer, the Clockmaker. On the second night, we don't have the Clockmaker or the Seamstress, but we do have the Dreamer. But then we add the Artist and the Savant, and then we have the Justice, Savant, and the Dreamer going forwards. We also have the Juggler. And I think just a 1 helps sell Nodashi rather than Vortox, and I think that's fine. It also tells the Mathematician that something is happening, because there could just be a game setup where it is the Mathematician in a Fangu game where there is no misinformation. It also could be telling the Mathematician that it's a Vigor Mortis because there was no misinformation. Someone died at night, a townsfolk is now poisoned, and that's where the 1 has come from. So you could, in theory, show a 2 then later on. And if the Vortox kills the Savant, you could potentially use that as a way to, the Dreamer's poison, it's a Vigor Mortis after the Savant, the minion was killed, something like that. Which I think works fine. I think 0, 1, 1 is fine here. But with this setup, because we have all information characters, the number is going to be high. So us showing you know, not 0, but like reasonable low numbers, and not just showing the same thing all of the time. You could, one of the ways to do the mathematician is you could go, here's my fake Nodashi, all right? The dreamer is going to activate every single night, so we can show a 1, and then when the artist acts, we show a 2, right? Like that's one way to do it, is you pick a particular frame, and then you use the Vortex of misinformation to set it up so that the savant looks like that they are the Nodashi. We can do the same if you have specific bluffs with the evil player. You could set the Clockmaker to do the same thing. You could have the witch be the Nodashi frame. It is perfectly fine to frame minions as the demon. And so if the witch is the Nodashi frame, you go 1, 1, zeros. Alright? Because the seamstress acts on the first night, artist does not. Seamstress no longer acts. Artist acts on the first day. Then never again. You have zeros from there on out. Which I think also could be fine. So we could go 1, 1, zeros forever. Which could be fine. But I think 0, 1, 1 is fine here. We ended up deciding on showing a 4 to the juggler. Then we have our seamstress. So for the seamstress, we are going to, let's just do every pair of players. We just go like this. So witch and artist, they're supposed to see a no. You have to show them a yes to the same alignment. Again, the seamstress is kind of binary. You see the artist and savant, you have to show them a no, they're not the same team. It's really straightforward. If you are struggling to run the Vortex, you're a brand new storyteller, right? And you're like, oh, Sex of Art seems a little bit daunting. And you want to do the Vortex. You want to set yourself up with as many characters that are binaries, because you go, okay, I just give you the opposite, and that's really easy. So the seamstress, the flower girl. The flower girl is a little bit harder to make sure that the demon voted or not. The town crier is a little bit easier. And then I think that's fine. Let's actually swap the seamstress out. We're going to swap the seamstress for the oracle. I think the oracle is a slightly more interesting one, because you pretty much have to be, most of the time, showing them ones straight away. The oracle is interesting because it starts off as a binary, but then you can escalate its number faster than it would ordinarily escalate. So for example, let's say on the first day we execute the Clockmaker, and then at night the savant dies. So we go to this scenario. The oracle should see a 0, but you show a 1. On the following, the Serenovus is executed, and then the dreamer dies at night. You could show the oracle a 2. And you're like, oh wow, both the people that just died are evil. It's probably a Vigor Mortis or a Fangu Jump or something like that. Because, well, on the first one, obviously, because of Vortex, you have to be showing a 1. But I was trying to give an example where you make it escalate faster than what you would expect. But on the first night, where it's the Savannah Clockmaker die, you have to show a 1 or greater. You obviously can't show a 3 because there's enough dead plays. Oracle knows that they are poisoned. So you go, okay, Savant Clockmaker dead. Here is a 1. There you go. We executed an evil plan. Then the Serenovus and the Dreamer die. That 1 would become correct. You can't backpedal because people aren't being resurrected, so you have to go to 2. And you can't show 3 because there's only 3 evil players in this setup by default. The way that you show a 3 is that if it already very much looks like a Fangu scenario and there's 1 remaining evil player, but again, you can't do it at this point. The way that you show a 3 is we go, okay, we're at a 2 now. So let's just go 1, 2, and we're going to try and show a 3. So the 1 is the Savant Clockmaker in the Vortex world. The 2 is the Dreamer, Serenovus, execution, death at night. So we go, okay, it's gone up by 1 each now. Gotten 2 evil kills. One of them is probably a Vigor Mortis in there somewhere. And then we go, okay, let's say I think in this scenario we don't we don't want an evil. Actually, I don't think it actually matters. Because we can show a 3 like this, where it's like, okay, there is actually only one evil dead, but they show 3, and they go, well, hang on, it has to have been a Fango jump to make that additional evil player for the game to have not ended at this point. But without the witch dying, we can still just show a 2. If the witch dies, you kind of have to show a 3 for it to be incorrect, because you can never go backwards. So the Oracle is interesting in that what you are showing should be pretty straightforward. If only good players have died, you can just stay at 1 for as long as possible, and then an evil player dies, and then the number changes, and they go, it doesn't matter what the number is, the number changed, an evil player had to die. Which is also, useful information for the Oracle, regardless of what the Vortex says and how false it has to be. If the number changes, the Oracle will think someone evil has died. And so I think that is worth paying attention to and worth knowing. So this is fine. I'm going to let's go back a step. We're going to swap out the Clockmaker because I want to talk about the Sage. Now, we've just executed the Serenovus, and then the Sage died at night to the Vortex. The Sage hard claimed to the Vortex that they were the Sage. They trusted them, and the Vortex viciously killed them. And so now we have to show a pair of players that is not seat 6 to tell the Sage that those, the demon is between them. So, okay, what are our options? We have Mathematician, Juggler, Oracle Mathematician, Oracle Juggler, etc. What are our best options here? Basically, we look at what players we are okay with being executed, especially because this is an early death from the Sage. We go, okay, what characters are we best okay with being executed here? Because it's day 2, the Juggler has their info. I think the Oracle is actually really going to be helpful here. I think we can't kill the Dreamer. I think we can't kill the Savant. So showing Math, Juggler, Witch, or Artist is fine. If you think that the evil team is struggling because the Serenovus is now dead, Artist, Juggler is fine. Or more punishingly, Mathematician, Artist, I think is fine. If you think that the Serenovus made themselves mad and intentionally broke madness to try and get themselves executed, you're like, okay, congratulations, you accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. The evil team, everything is going according to plan. We are going to instead show the Witch and the Mathematician. I think in this scenario, you can show the Witch and a more powerful info character as balance, because they're going to kill a minion, and then you can, lose the Dreamer or something, which I think is fine. Basically, at this point, you go, okay, what's my read on what team is winning? And a lot of the times when you make choices, you go, okay, what's my read on what team is winning? What would I give a general at this exact moment? Would I give the general a thumbs down, the evil team is winning? Or would I give the general a thumbs up, the good team is winning? And then based on your answer is whether or not you show the Witch as one of the options. Which I think shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. Okay, next let's talk about the Artist. The Artist is a tricky one. I'm going to talk about some common asked Artist questions. The first is these 3 players the demon? This is possibly the most common one that I get. So let's go. Is seat 3, 4, or 5 the demon? You have to say yes. Is seat 5, 6, 7 the demon? You have to say no. It's an easy binary. You just need to figure out what the correct answer is and then give them the opposite. They can give you some more complex questions where I once was given an Artist question, which was, if seat 5 is slated for execution, is it in the best interest of seat 6 to instead nominate and try and execute seat 7? And you're like, huh? It's like, well, in this scenario, the Vortex does not care if either player dies. So no, it is not in their best interest to do that. It doesn't help them in any way. It doesn't matter. So no, it is not in their best interest. However, in the scenario where they did ask it, they had the minion was seat 5 and the demon was seat 6. So I'm like, yes, it is in their best interest to kill seat 7 instead. And it's harder to Vortex information that is asked of you like this. But I think I trust you. I think you can figure it. I think it'll be okay. Just make a reasonable judgment as to what the actual answer should be, and then give the opposite. Because the artist exists in a binary, it shouldn't be that hard. But the Savant is much harder. The Savant and the Dreamer, now we're up to the real meat and potatoes. So the Savant, how I like to give Savant information is usually observations of the game. The power in the Savant is that you can give information that no other existing character could give, or characters off scripts could give, is like a really common one. In Sex and Violence, Savant information is often like a chef would receive an X or whatever. I've given Savant information about the fearmonger's chosen target, the who received the widow ping, where Puzzle Master Drunkening is, stuff like that. Like you can give information about where reminder tokens and stuff are. In this scenario, we could give information about which of the juggles were correct. But because it's a Vortex, we have to give false information, not true false information. And then when they figure that out, they go, wow, all of the things that we've been given are invertibly true. Then they start, knocking down some big dominoes. So on the first day, we could say, okay, the seat 10 was juggled correctly, right? And that gives the Savant something to work with the juggler and go, oh, you got a 4. Okay, I know that the witch seat 10, obviously I don't know it's the witch particularly, whatever the juggler gets them. Let's say that was the sage. I know you juggled seat 10 correctly because this other thing seems more false or seems harder to read or understand or whatever. For this, we could give a false piece of information that an outsider has been added to the game. It also depends on what day. If you want to talk about things that have been pit hacked or not. A snake charmer activation, stuff like that. But you go, okay, seat 10 was juggled correctly. And you could do stuff like an evil player was nominated. You could do stuff like this particular character was nominated. But like obviously incorrectly. You could say, like, if the Vortex was nominated, you could say their bluff, insert their bluff here. This is where their bluff goes, this little box. Was nominated yesterday. And they go, oh, okay, interesting. That person is claiming this thing. They were nominated, and then you have to figure out, is that the true half? Is that the false half? But jokes, they're both false. You can make things feel like there is a true half if you are mentioning things that have happened in the game so far, including bluffs and stuff like that. You can talk about who is Serenovus Mad. You can talk about who is Witch Curse. Saying that the Serenovus is Serenovus Mad as a character is kind of funny. Using things from townsfolk abilities to put heat onto minions, I think, is usually very good. It doesn't necessarily have to implicate them, but if you go, hey, the Serenovus was mad as this character yesterday, seat 4, and they go and talk to them and go, hey, I got Savant information that says you were mad from the Serenovus yesterday, were you? And then they are put in an awkward situation because they either say, yes, I was mad yesterday, and the person they actually picked either has to be Serenovus locked or will later come out and challenge them for it, and then they will start to look evil. Or They go, no, I was not Serenovus mad. And the savant goes, interesting. Therefore, my other piece of information must be correct. And then you can kind of make a judgment call as to which way you might think that will go, kind of based on the play pattern of the player. If you're really familiar with your play group and you see an absolute trickster goblin person, you give them more things to work with, right? Like, let's say our seat 4 player is a super advanced player. They're known for being super chaotic and saying silly things and doing crazy plays. Then you start drawing heat towards them. You start giving players information that implicates them in particular, makes the narrative move towards that person because they then have more to work with. They can do more crazy stuff. More fun can potentially happen. Trying to think about what some other things might work. I don't know. I think that's maybe a good start for this one. I probably could do a whole video on kinds and ideas of savant information. If that is something that you think is difficult or you are curious about, let me know, because then I can put that in the queue and we can start adding that next in the series. Because for me, I've been storytelling for like 6 years now. A lot of these things I don't necessarily find super difficult, and I'm maybe now a bit far removed from what might be challenging for newer storytellers, or it might have changed. The things that might have become challenging for new storytellers might be different from when I was first learning. So if there is stuff that you are struggling with or you want to ask questions about, get in the comments and let me know, and I can address it in further videos for this series. We could run through all of the savant information. But lucky last, I want to go through the Dreamer. The Dreamer is easy because we're literally going to select every single player and then pick what good options are to show here. But before we do this, we're going to pick 3 bluffs. What are some reasonable ones? Let's say Flower Girl, and then let's say Seamstress. So the Vortox is claiming Flower Girl. I definitely spelled that correctly. The Witch is the Seamstress. And the Serenovus is the Clockmaker. No, that's hell yes. Clockamka. I can't type. Okay. So now that we know what good character the evil players are claiming as, it makes the Dreamer a lot easier for us. But the other thing, if you are running Clocktower in person, my hot tip for running the Dreamer is wake up the Dreamer, let them select a player, grab one of your extra pips, that you use for the night order to determine when people are supposed to awake, put them next to the person selected, put the Dreamer to sleep, go and look through your spare tokens and figure out exactly what things you are going to show to the Dreamer. Because you have a big grimoire, if you go, here is a character token from the left half of the grimoire, here is a character token from the right half of the grimoire, the Dreamer's going to go, okay, one of these is very bullshit. And then instead you go, okay, these are the 2 things I'm going to show the Dreamer. You put them in the center of your grimoire where you have a little bit extra space. Then you wake up the Dreamer again and you go, here's the 2 things from the same spot of the grimoire. But it also gives you a moment to go, what is the best choice here? And the Dreamer is not sitting there looking at you going, what are you doing? I do not know. Am I poisoned? Because this was hard for you to figure out. The Dreamer information is difficult to give generally because even if you know one of the correct things, but showing the incorrect thing makes a big difference. Do you show a demon? Do you show a minion? It's a lot, right? Putting them to sleep also gives you an opportunity to ask an evil player what they are bluffing. And then if you just kind of explain to people yeah, look, the Dreamer is really hard. I want to make sure that I get it right. I've messed it up in the past. This is how I'm doing it just, for easy of me. I very often when I'm storytelling, say that I make mistakes and I do certain things to make things easier for me. Being fallible is fine. Working hard to make better games is encouraged. So players are not going to complain, especially if you're taking your time to make sure that you get it right. So don't stress so much about taking a little bit of extra time for the hard characters that you do need to spend the time on in the night phase. You're the boss here. You control how long things go. It's during the day that you should be kicking people's ass to make sure the game runs on time, because the players will always try and make it run longer, and then you're trying to keep on a schedule. Whereas the night phase, you have an internal clock as to how much you're struggling, how long you're taking. Anyway, moving on. Dreamer selects Cerenovus. The Cerenovus is bluffing as the Clockmaker, but we cannot show the Dreamer the Cerenovus. What two things do we want to show here? Now, we, again, like I just said before, if we have a Chaos Gremlin character, we can show them something that is not Clockmaker, right? It is very common for people to bluff as things that they are not, even if they are townsfolk. So we could go, okay, actually, it's not the Clockmaker. This is the Town Crier, or this is the Oracle. It's actually an information character. This is the Snake Charmer, right? And then we have to pick an evil character. Now, the evil twin, we have not seen evidence of an evil twin. The Witch and the Cerenovus, we could always invert which one that they are, right? The evil twin is obviously the most complicated one because you can't show that they are an evil twin. If the Dreamer picks an evil twin in a Vortex game, you need to make it believable that they are bluffing that they are twins and trying to set something up. So showing really powerful townsfolk abilities and also really powerful minion and demon abilities, they go, oh, okay, maybe it's not real. But showing one as a minion, one as a demon, I think is also interesting. That could also work. But for the moment, we can't show the Cerenovus as the evil twin because it would be really obviously false and would potentially make the Dreamer trust the Cerenovus too much. The other problem is that the Dreamer might go to the Cerenovus and go, hey, I saw you as this thing, and the Cerenovus does not say, yes, I am that townsfolk. Which is fine. We should also potentially be picking a not in play townsfolk also, and a not bluffed one. So Town Cry is actually a good choice here because it's not in play and it's not one of the bluffs. And if the Dreamer goes, hey, I saw you as the Town Crier, and the Cerenovus goes, damn, how did you know that's me, the Town Crier? It's not detrimental to the evil team. And the Dreamer thinks that they have correct information in a Vortex game, which is detrimental to the good team. So everything is going according to plan. But what evil thing do we show? We can always invert and show the Witch instead of the Cerenovus and vice versa. I think showing the Pit Hag will eventually be confirmed to be not in play and potentially has the same problem as the evil twin, because if no one ever claims to have been Pit Hagged, the Pit Hag is kind of obviously not in play. Now for the demons. The Dreamer is sitting next to the Cerenovus, so showing no Dashi is possibly not a great idea, because the Dreamer's going to go, well, I kind of just have to trust the other townsfolk, because if you're the Nadashi, I would not see you as the Nadashi. I would not get correct information to implicate you as the demon if you were actually the demon. And so I think that's right. I think that's fine to not show the Nadashi. Fengu might be proven to be not in play because there's no outsiders. We're at 10 players, 0 outsiders default, so the Fengu might not be shown. So if we want to show a demon, I think the Vigor Mortis here is probably a fine choice. So I think our best showing here is Town Crier / Vigor Mortis. But then there's tension where our Juggler got it potentially correct on the Cerenovus as the Clockmaker. And the Dreamer goes, well, I dreamt you as Town Crier, and the Juggler goes, well, I got a 4. So unless it was Cerenovus is specifically that one guy, and then the Witch messes up the bluff, and then Juggler goes, my information, my number is maybe a little bit too high. So I don't know. You have to be mindful of how all the different puzzle pieces kind of fit together. But let's move on. Dreamer now shows the Sage. Now, very often, the Sage will also be bluffing as something, because obviously coming out as a Sage is not going to get you killed by the demon. They might come out as something powerful. They might be the Savant. They might be like the Flower Girl or something like that. So I think actually showing Flower Girl here, we have the same problems with which minions and demons we can show. But we can show no Dashi. Showing no Dashi here means that if the Cerenovus is giving bunk Town Crier information, that they put, like the Dreamer goes, maybe it's not that big deal. So doing something like Savant will get found out pretty quickly if they're just never visiting a storyteller. But the Flower Girl here I think is fine. And then Nodashi I think is okay. Now, people meta a lot as to whether a minion or a demon was shown in Dreamer information. And I think that is kind of important, trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Showing a demon, I think, is more likely to get someone killed. Showing a minion, people are like, whatever, you know. So I think you should skew towards showing minions earlier in the night order and demons later in the night order. Showing demons earlier in the night order, sorry, in like the night 1, night 2, night 3, like nights order, not like the night sheet order. Showing demons earlier in the game is more likely to get those players executed. Showing demons later in the game and minions earlier in the game, I think, is a bit better. Specifically, if you have to give misinformation. If the Dreamer picks a townsfolk, and that townsfolk is really critical to them solving the game, like the Savant might be the one person that's going to be getting good information in this game. Showing a minion like the Witch, I think, is probably going to be your best choice. But we'll come back to that in a minute. I think Flower Girl and Nodashi here is fine for this age. Dreamer selects the Vortox, who is bluffing as the Flower Wriggle, and then we can just show the Flower Girl, which is going to be interesting because the Sage we have also shown the Flower Girl. This is telling the Dreamer that something between these two players is incorrect and potentially can help them investigate and find the Vortox. But I think in this scenario, we show the Vortox as a minion that, I think actually the pit hag. I think showing the Vortox as the pit hag here. So we go Flower Girl / pit hag. Now, the Vortox goes, well, I just am the Flower Girl, you got correct information on me. And then if the Dreamer doesn't believe them, they go, well, then you have to be the pit hag. But there's been no pit hagging so far in the game. So either my information is incorrect, or you are in fact the Flower Girl and I got correct information. I think that's fine. I think that this is, a totally okay thing to show. I don't think it's going to get the demon killed immediately. So I don't think it's a big deal. The next one is the Juggler, which is a little bit tough. Now the Juggler, I'm gonna clear out these reminder tokens for the minute, make up some space. The Juggler is going to be very public that they are the Juggler, and they're going to stick to that throughout the entire game. Which means showing the Juggler as the Sage is fine. I also think Fangu is okay here. If you show the same characters too often, then the Dreamer might go, oh, they have to be relevant to the setup. They have to be in play. Showing a couple different demon options, I think is okay. As you can see, we obviously have not shown the Vortox anywhere. Showing the Vortox tells the Dreamer that that person is not the Vortox. So I think you just really, there's just no scenario where showing the Dreamer the Vortox makes sense. Unless if you're like, this player is just good. Trust this one guy. But I still think it's not. I still think it's not great. In some advanced scripts, like the Monk, which protects from the Vortox's false information, you might have to show a Vortox. But how is the Dreamer going to figure that out? But let's not worry about that for right now. We have the Mathematician next. Now, the Mathematician, in my experience, the Mathematician is not super public. Normally in the middle of the game, they'll come out and be like, well, this is kind of my info. I got a couple of zeros, a couple of ones. Well, I don't know what's really going on. I think it's probably a Nodashi. Or, as always, every single thing ends with or it is a Vortox. I think showing the Mathematician as a Snake Charmer, actually. I think the Snake Charmer is fine here. And then we show... I think we don't show a demon. I think we show a minion here. Let's go Snake Charmer Witch. So we've already shown a lot of demons. We've shown the Vig, the Nodashi, and the Fangu across 3 good players. We should start, and like mostly because like we're okay with the Sage dying here, we're okay with the Juggler dying here, we're okay with the Serenovus dying here. That's fine. The mathematician, whose information is a little bit more relevant and working with the dreamer, might help them find out that it is in fact the Vortox, means that showing friendlier results for the mathematician might be good. I think the Snake Charmer makes sense because the Snake Charmer bluffing as an information character and then becoming the demon and then hiding behind that information bluff to try and like run it, to the finish line makes sense. So it's not unrealistic. I don't think any of these particular things shown to the dreamer are like so ridiculous that the dreamer goes, "Oh, my information is false." It's like, oh, if they were actually the sage, they're not going to tell me that they're not the flower girl. But the sage might just be bluffing as a different thing. I think it just comes down to how much the dreamer is willing to believe that the information is correct or not. How much they're willing to trust the people they're going to trust and figure that out. Next is the Oracle. I think the Oracle is, and I'm not assuming that they're doing this in this clockwise order. I'm assuming this is all at any time. This is, just what I think is the best pick for the dreamer to select that character ever. In general, I would recommend showing more minions early and more demons later. For this particular thing, I've obviously not followed that rule because I'm not going, okay, the dreamer picked this first, then this second, then this third. I'm just going, okay, this is what the character is, this is what their bluff is, what do I think is the best choice for showing these things? The Oracle is a tough one because I've already shown Snake Charmer to someone. I think it is harder, but we can show an outsider like the mutant. This is a thing that we haven't done yet. We can show an outsider, which is the mutant, and we showed somebody else as the Fangu before, so that might be a little more believable. And if you show a second person as the Fangu, the dreamer might go, oh, maybe I am solving this game. But what evil character do we want to show next to the mutant? I think if we've seen evidence of Serenova's madness, showing the Serenovas here is fine. So we go, okay, Serenovas. Then we go the Witch. Now the Witch we can actually just show the Seamstress for. If we really think that the good team is getting destroyed, the evil team is running all over them, we can show the Witch or the or the Demon or the Serenovas as things that they are not claiming to help the dreamer go, well, that guy's sus, we should kill him. But again, that's a judgment call. Do we think the good team is really winning? Do we think the evil team is steamrolling? How effective do I want this false information to be? At the moment, I'm assuming that it's balanced and even, and not getting the evil players killed right away is the correct choice. If there's a scenario where the evil team is losing, I think you should just always show as best you can to what they're bluffing. If the narrative is that they're very confident it's a Vortox, showing what they are bluffing could be more detrimental. So you have to kind of get a vibe as to what you think the dreamer is going to do with that information that you're giving. But I think here, for the Witch, we want to start showing more people as the Fangu to help sell this mutant scenario. And I think I would also show mutant for the Savant. And then we can maybe go, I think minion is fine here, because we don't specifically want the Savant to die, because the Savant's got really important information. Showing as a demon is probably detrimental. Showing as a mutant and not a townsfolk, I think, is interesting. And then our last pick is the artist, because of course the dreamer cannot select themselves. And so with the artist, yeah, I actually want to show Nodashi. We can actually go philosopher here. So let's go, because there's no philosopher in play. Showing someone as the philosopher, I think, is fine. There is it's not a thing that happens super often, but there is times when the philosopher will not claim to be the philosopher because they know that evil people will jump on that because it might feel open, and they just claim as the ability that they received because that matches what information they have, which I think is fine. And so showing a random person as not a philosopher, as the philosopher, isn't so ridiculous and out there. I think these choices aren't so crazy. I think, it doesn't immediately tell the Dreamer that there is a Voltox in play, and it doesn't, immediately out all of the evil players as being evil. Some of the choices, are a little bit challenging. Like Town Crier for the Sonos means Sonos, it wasn't a Clockmaker. The Mutant obviously cannot go, yeah, dude, I am actually the Mutant. You got correct info. Which I think is interesting. We could always change that around so that an evil player was seen as the Mutant instead of a good player. But otherwise, I think for the most part, these things are fine. The Juggler and metaing on common players done with your play group. One of the common things that my play group does is if the Sage really, really publicly tries to juggle, that's like an easy way for them to potentially try and get killed, because the demon will stop the juggler from trying to get their information. So showing the juggler as the Sage goes, oh, I've seen this play all the time. I totally trusted that person as the Sage. I'm not going to try and out them because I want the juggler bluff to stick and for the demon to potentially kill them later or whatever. And stuff like that. If you go, oh, this is a really common thing that this player in particular does. Like this player in particular often claims to want when they're not, because they're actually this evil thing. Maybe show that evil thing. And the more that you play, the more practice you get, the more understanding of how different characters work, what things people are likely to do, and understanding of what common choices are made will help you make better choices. Because if you can guess what you think the players are going to do with the information that they receive, you can more efficiently balance the game, because you're able to make kind of predictions as to how things are going to go, and then you can kind of steer the course of the river as it's moving along. But that's kind of it. That is building setups, having a look at how the Voltox interacts with all of the townsfolk's information, insects and violets. Hopefully this was really helpful, and this one was a lot more in-depth than some of the other ones, and looking at storytelling from a slightly different angle from the other ones in this series. But let me know if you like this, and let me know if there's other stuff that you're interested in asking about, other ones you're having troubles with. Get in the comments and tell me which character is the hardest for you to storytell on sex and violets, because that will help me a lot. I'll try and make content that then helps you. But for the moment on the screen, I'm going to put up the whole playlist for the other storyteller advice ones with the building better balance bottom of the Clocktower setups. So if this wasn't enough, if you still think you are not the best storyteller of all time, perhaps there is something in that playlist that could help you on your journey to become a great storyteller. And as always, I'll just kind of put up a random video. It is most likely a Blood on the Clocktower video, because we have a lot of them on the channel, but we do a lot of other stuff as well that's maybe worth exploring. And as always, the subscribe button, because I greatly appreciate all of my subscribers. I'm trying to get to 1,000 this year, which is kind of a big challenge. So I appreciate all help with that, and hopefully I'll see you in the next Balanced Setups video.